Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Where's My Sage. Christy, how are you doing this evening?
I'm getting there. How are you? I'm getting there.
Still recovering from investigations all weekend and getting things together, and it's just been a little crazy.
It was good though. It was good, right?
Yes.
Good.
And
private investigations are always, interesting, but we had a good time.
Hello, Ricky. Yes, definitely a good time. Wonderful family, an amazing location. A couple of good off trips that we both needed to go. Unfortunately, things have been a little crazy. We weren't able to get on last week. Hello, Josie. Hello, Carrie. Yes. And
hello, everybody.
So we're waiting for folks to come on. Our special guest this evening is sent me a quick message. He had to take the dogs for a walk, and as we are both dog people, we understand that.
I'm not so sure that's what I have kids for. No, it's okay, Eric. We love you.
So hello, Michelle. So he'll be coming on. Hello, Penny. So as we're tuning in, folks, again, we apologize for not being on last week for the show. We will find a day. Things have been a little off.
Hey, Johnny.
So, your cousin's on there.
Hi, cousin. How you doing, Johnny?
Hello,
it's been a little bit of a rough week. I apologize, everybody who saw me have to leave last minute. There was a family emergency. And I had to go. It was my dad. He is home. He is okay, but there are things we have to handle. So to those of you who did see and reached out to me, I really appreciate it. And I appreciate all the well wishes and prayers and notes of concern that I've received. So I appreciate it. And again, I apologize to our guest from last week and to Mike, but I know he can handle it. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So it's been a little bit of a hairy week for me. So I also just ask for those of you who are waiting for either phone calls back from me or to be rescheduled to please just bear with me. I'm working on it. I will get to you within this week or next week, and we will make sure that we get everything set. I kind of threw everything for a loop and have priorities that have to come first. So, but I will get to you guys, I promise. Okay. Looking back to getting things back to normal. So, yeah.
So we'll do a couple more hellos here. Hello, Connie.
Hi, Connie.
So, Michelle, my tent, I haven't looked at it yet, but niece and nephew stole my tent while I was in the woods, my backup that I always take with me. So hopefully my dog did not eat it, while they were using it. Hello, Wendy.
Very good care of it. Hi, Wendy.
Janine likes your lamp.
Oh, hi, Mom. Oh, my mom says to me and happy birthday to my dad. We had an outside get together for my dad today. So it is his birthday as well. So that was really nice. And she says, I really miss, that's my mom, seeing the lamp that you used to have behind you. And I thought, okay, well, the light bulb in that salt lamp has been burned out for so long that I might as well just go grab it. So I did. So I put it behind me. So, and for those of you who don't know about the lamp, it goes up and down. It gets real bright and it gets real soft when I talk, especially when I do reading shows. So keep your eye on the lamp. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Yeah.
Hi, Stream.
Hi.
Okay, I'm clicking way too fast tonight. Again, for folks coming on tonight, if you can please share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, our Facebook. We're coming at you from a couple different locations tonight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 locations. So Where's My Sage on YouTube, Christy's business page, Tactical Bigfoot Research, WLFE DB Radio, and Where's My Sage, our public page. So we'll be taking questions when our guest gets in this evening. Doug, I see your message there, and yes, I'm going to put that up and embarrass him when he gets on. So, John,
he'll love it. Yes, please share, you guys. Please share the show tonight. share with your friends and your family.
Yes.
And please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe to that as well. And like Mike said, we will reschedule the show, and we will do an extra show because we did say we would do that. We will do an extra reading show as well. So you have 2 coming your way. And who knows, knowing us, we may just do something impromptu and throw something, you know. So even though COVID's, not keeping us down completely, we like to be impulsive, or I like to be impulsive, and then I like to tell Mike that we're going to be impulsive, and that's kind of how that works. Although he's starting to catch up to me on that one. There's been a couple times he's caught me off guard on that one. Hi, Joe. Yeah.
So we haven't done a tactical Tuesday and my gear stuff in a while, and I'm going to kind of use it as a little filler, but it's kind of important. So we did a private investigation this last weekend because both of us had crazy news, and it came up that some friends needed some help. So we went out to east of where we are located, and with great family, and spent some time on their property. But when we left, we're like, hey, we can take a couple little day trips out to look for moose, because I wanted to switch things up from Bigfoot and go to look for moose. Now, I used to have a wonderful Jeep that was always, had all the toys and all the GPSs and everything built in. Well, I sold that to go to something a little more off-road. So if you go more off-road, all the convenient features come out. So out that came. So I've been running around using Waze on my phone. Now, there is a map in the back seat of my car. Very important to bring a map and a compass with you guys. Yeah, Doug, we hope to get. Yeah, Doug, we're going to try to get down to PA with this COVID thing, and with Christy's dad. We really wanted to stay in state because we had the offer from you guys in Pennsylvania, and we had another really cool thing that we were supposed to do in Massachusetts. Both of those we had to, and luckily it worked out that.
It did. It did. We were able to get to someone else who
our family who needed us there with our technology.
Yeah.
So Christy was nice enough to bring along her GPS, which is running. And if you guys have been paying attention to the news, they got hijacked on ransomware. So as I decided to drive off to the middle of nowhere to go look for moose, because one of my friends with Nesra said, hey, go down here. You have a great chance of finding the middle of moose down on the Moose River Plains. So it was in Waze till I took a wrong turn, right turn, whatever you want to call it. But that cell signal, whoop, out the window. So we relied on, I got something up over here at landed.
Did you crack the new phone?
No, I didn't crack the new phone.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
not going through that again.
Yeah, no. 3 weeks without a phone, I'm not doing that again. My watch works in the woods. Yes, we found out better than my cell phone does. But we used Christy's GPS.
Yes.
And what I thought was going to be an hour into the woods turned out to be a 3-hour trek at 15 miles an hour through some beautiful country. But at about the hour and a half range, the phone was going out the window. The GPS was going out the window. Because I said to myself, hey, we'll just go a little farther. I should just turn around and go back the other way.
And we should just put it out there, too, that, we've done many different road trips, although this was the longest we've done together so far. And, even if
road trips
town, Mike's favorite statement usually to me is, oh, this didn't take me where I thought it was going to go. So I've learned to just kind of put my hand on the back and go whoop, across the back of his head, because why not? I have to be able to get my aggression out somehow, right? So that was a fun phone call home. I said, here, you get to talk to the hubby and tell him why I'm coming home 3 hours late tonight. So Greg was like, oh, okay.
But
we
managed to hit almost every major tourist in the Adirondacks because of that wonderful GPS, minus Old Forge.
Minus Old Forge, yes.
Minus Old Forge.
Yes. Yeah, we did.
We were hoping to go live on Whiteface Mountain for you guys. One of the other trips. I wanted to get out there and really do the show, do a question and answer for those folks that are not from New York or have not been to the Adirondack Park. Just so you guys can see. Boy, I look like I'm about 30 seconds behind with my mouth in my speaker here. So
you always look like that.
But if you get a chance, folks, the Adirondack State Park in New York is absolutely amazing. Just to go out and relax. And
it really is.
There is our special guest.
Or get lost and get pissed off and, you know.
Yeah. And it doesn't.
Because you're tired from all weekend, but hey.
And the worst part.
And all no big deal.
No Bigfoot. No more. The three loons that I saw were, I want to call them city loons because they didn't make any sound and they were floating around the lake like a duck. And I'm like, oh, loons! I'm in the Adirondack loons. No, I think these guys are ready to eat whatever they could find, like the ducks that were swimming at the shore when I stopped for lunch.
Well, the icing on the cake was after an hour at least of being stuck in the godforsaken park, realizing we didn't see anything. So
a squirrel and a turkey.
Listen, it took us over an hour to see anything. And then when we finally did, he was like, oh my God. And he hits the brakes. And, of course, I go flying forward. And he goes, oh, there. And I'm like, where? I'm looking. There's this big boulder. You guys, it was a freaking squirrel. And I didn't even get to see the whole squirrel. And I have squirrels in my backyard. So anybody who sees my public page knows that I take pictures and videos of my squirrels in my backyard anyways. I'm like, oh, there's a tail. And it was gone. And then, a half hour later, a freaking turkey. I live in Niagara Falls and I could see a turkey.
Yep. Pull into my driveway and got all the other animals in my driveway. Yeah.
I saw 3 deer just driving home.
Yeah.
On my own way home. Yes. Yeah.
But no moose. Beautiful mountains. But if you can get up there, it's amazing.
It is.
Even with COVID, some of the towns that we managed to pass through on 2 different day trips. And again, to our wonderful hosts for the investigation. I mean,
yes.
That
yes.
property.
Thank you very much. Yeah. They were very
absolutely amazing.
A lot of time, and we were able to do a lot to figure some things out. And
yep.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So
I think I'm coming a long way. I'm learning a lot.
So yes. So to go back to Tactical Tuesday, and I see Eric is coming to our back room here. Make sure you got a map with you. Make sure you got a compass with you. We relied on that technology, and it was just horrible that we did not have that ability.
Yeah. Doesn't she usually watch the show? I think that was pretty.
Yeah, they're probably sleeping. Vita kept breaking out of her house. She now has a 1/4-inch stroll lock at the bottom of her cage now.
She's
wonderful.
So cute. Be nice to her.
I love my Doberman. She's an escape artist. So
I think your shepherd's the escape artist lately, though.
She just knows how to open the doors.
Right. Well, you're right. She does it the correct way.
Okay. So without further ado, get
it right.
Yeah, I can't talk. We've learned that. We have Mr. Eric Altman with us this evening.
Hi, Eric.
Hello.
Thanks for being here.
For those that don't know Eric, Eric is a cryptozoologist specializing in Bigfoot and Sasquatch. You know what? I have your whole bio here, but there's more important things. I've known Brian Brian. Look at this.
What?
That's twice it does. Yeah. So Eric is, I'm going to do it now, is the director of the Pennsylvania Cryptozoology Society. Got my shirt on. A co-founder of Beyond the Edge Radio, live weekly radio program from 1997 to 2019. You really must enjoy doing these interviews now. Eric has been investing cases and sightings back to 1997. He is investigator assistant over 250 Bigfoot sighting cases, encounters, and claims in Pennsylvania. He was the organizer of the East Coast Bigfoot Conference from 2000 to 2011. And beginning in 2016, he hosted the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Camping Adventure, an annual fundraiser, which is you've had 3 of those. My first one, I even have signed things. But Ricky, if you're looking at Eric, this is mounted on my Bigfoot wall because that's where I heard my first call with our buddy Jay. And you've contributed to many documentaries, books, and other items, as well as interviews and podcasts. We thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You also have a big set of condolences on the loss of Dave this week. Dave Drageson, your partner in crime and one of our guys. We lost him this week, so condolences to Dave and you.
Very sorry.
And David's family. So thank you for joining us on this, crazy week. Eric is kind of like one of my mentors. So I'm very happy and pleased to have him on. We did have
Eric,
that group.
I'm so sorry.
We did the group Bigfoot thing there a couple weeks ago. But I really wanted Eric on by himself because his experience and expertise is absolutely amazing. And years ago, I had a couple of surgeries, and when I was laid up on the surgeries, I got started on this journey as I was sitting around and caught quite a few of the documentaries that Eric was in, and got where I IMDb'd him and watched everything. So if you get a chance, folks, Invasion at Chestnut Ridge, and if you want to go over some of the great programs that you've been in, Eric, I really appreciate that. And Ricky's beating me up already. So our boys are in the audience. So from your experience and stuff like that, what media can folks find you in? And then we'll get into some of your... Actually, let's get into your background first.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
You weren't really going down the road you thought you were going to go down, right, Mike?
No. I'm going to... Usually I've got my notes here, but
all over again.
Yeah. It has been... The last 5 days have been a whirlwind of craziness. And... we were really hoping to get down with you guys in Pennsylvania, and it just switched into going other, and then just an investigation. So, is this the new guy behind you?
Yeah, that's our new dog, Scrappy.
Oh, cute.
I don't know why he decided to get on camera, but he did.
That's awesome. Vita and my Dobie usually sneaks in on us. So your background. I've heard many of interviews, but some of our listeners may not be familiar with some of your work. That's awesome, Eric. That's a great photo. Screenshot that.
Oh, cute. Oh, my goodness. Okay, let the man talk.
Yes.
I got you, Eric. Don't worry.
And this Doug Lockhart, I don't know who he is, but he says, "Hi guys, you have a movie star on tonight." Hi, Doug. I was hiding that in the background. So, and again, we'll get down to PA and get out in the woods with you, Doug, very soon. So, so some of your background.
To break it down pretty quickly and easily so we can get to talking about the other stuff. I started this journey studying cryptids and Bigfoot when I was about 10 years old. A couple of films played a big role in me getting involved in that. When I was 13 years old, I met Stan Gordon for the first time at a mall display in my hometown of Greensburg. And I was very surprised to find out there was a lot of Bigfoot sightings and reports that were going on here in my home state and even my hometown back in the early 1970s. So I began to educate myself, reading whatever I could as far as books go, newspapers go, magazine articles, watching anything I could on TV that had to do with the subject, and kind of educated myself prior to getting into the field, because I felt if I wanted to really tackle this, I felt I needed a good solid base to build upon. And I recommend that for anybody that wants to get into any kind of science, whether it be paranormal or cryptid hunting or ufology, is to educate yourself prior to jumping in, because if you have a good base to build on, then you can really become a well-rounded researcher. It helps to have that knowledge and that history and to understand the subject before you just dive into it. So that's what I did. 1997, after I got married, we moved back to Pennsylvania from Ohio, and I decided to start looking into some of these historical cases that I'd read about by going out to the locations and seeing them for myself, trying to track down some of the witnesses who had their encounters prior to me getting involved, and try to talk with them and see if their story had changed, or maybe have them fill me in on what actually happened from their own words and that sort of thing. So I kind of got started that way and moved into independent research on my own back in 97. 98, I met a couple guys, Steve Anderson and Henry Benton. They were running a group called the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society, which at that time was just maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people. And they asked me to get involved with it. I was also involved with the BFRO at that time, the Bigfoot Field Researcher Organization, and joined up with Henry and Steve, and started doing our case investigations. Steve backed out of the group probably in 2000 due to personal reasons, asked me to take over, and from 2000 to 2014, 15, around that time frame, I was the director or president or whatever you want to call it of the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society. And that's really where I've done the majority of my field work and investigations in.
Wow. Just out of curiosity, just for my own, what movies were they? Which movies did you watch that actually inspired you?
That one back there on the wall, where I can't. That one right there.
That isn't cool. I can't say.
It's called.
I remember, I'm very, I'm still learning this whole thing. So which one was that?
the movie poster over my left shoulder. It's Legend of Boggy Creek. It's a film that was made in 1972. It was done by a guy named Charles Pierce, and he was a documentary filmmaker, and he went to a little town called Falk, Arkansas, where there was an abundance of sightings during the late 1960s through the early 1970s. And what he wanted to do was put together a film where he would interview the eyewitnesses and do recreations of their encounters and sightings with the Bigfoot creature. And the film was released. It was an independent film, I think financed for about $200,000, but it ended up making $25 million, being shown all over the world. And that was probably one of the biggest influences of me getting involved, was seeing that film.
Very neat. Thank you. I was just curious, All right, Mike, I know you have another question. Go for it.
So you started out reading books and then meeting Stan. And was that more towards the ufology stuff or more towards the Bigfoot stuff with Stan? Because I know he really has a wide range of background and investigative. But what was your following up with him? Was it more towards ufology and getting started with your documentation that way, or was it going towards the cryptid side? I guess I'm explaining myself well enough on that question.
Yeah, I actually had an interest in all of it. When I was reading the books at the library, they had books on UFOs and books on different cryptid creatures and books on haunting. So it all kind of fascinated me. But when I was reading some of the newspaper archives and stuff at the library about Stan, I found that he was doing Bigfoot research as well as UFO research. And to me at the time, it just seemed more tangible for the Bigfoot research, because it was actually something you could go out and maybe find physical evidence, where if a UFO lands, the chances of you finding physical evidence is very slim. And I wasn't really impressed with the fact that if somebody had a UFO sighting, you could go talk to them, but you couldn't possibly see the UFO in the same place. In other words, if a UFO was there, it's gone. So all you could get was the story. With Bigfoot, there's a chance Bigfoot still might be lurking around the area and still maybe leaving evidence, to trace evidence, whether it be footprints or maybe hair. And that really really captured my imagination, if you will. I really thought maybe there was a better chance of proving Bigfoot exists than UFOs did at that time. So I was kind of drawn more towards that. And when I got to the mall where Stan used to put on these Bigfoot displays at the mall where he'd bring plaster casts, kind of like what they do now at conferences, but he would have a huge 6 to 8 table display at the center court of the mall, and he'd have pictures from UFO cases he investigated, documents from eyewitnesses, Bigfoot casts, all kinds of different evidence and stuff like that. And he had a lot of this stuff, and to me, it was intriguing to see the actual cast. That was, to me, proof that this thing was actually out there. There was something out there worth studying, and that really drew me in, and it kind of, that's where my path kind of went. I have an interest in UFOs, but not like I do in the Bigfoot phenomenon. And again, simply because to me, if you talk to an eyewitness, you can go interview them and you can talk to them about their case and what they might have seen. But the chance of finding any kind of evidence to support that or to verify what they saw is pretty much slim. So I stick to the cryptids. There's more, to me, more chance of finding solid evidence that way.
And you're now also dabbling into some of the paranormal, or have gone into the paranormal besides the house, correct?
Yeah. I'm what you call
All right, Eric.
I'm what you call a paranormal
Bring
enthusiast.
What's that?
I find the subject fascinating, and I really enjoy reading about it and watching the documentaries on TV. And I've gone on some investigations with different groups. I belong to a couple different paranormal groups, but my main forte is cryptozoology. That's where my heart will always be. But I do find it fascinating, the paranormal world itself, going into homes or haunted locations. And I've had some really crazy experiences over the years, hearing things and seeing things that just baffle me. But again, it all leads me back to the crypto world. That's where I spend most of my time doing the study.
So here's my ever famous question. Do you think there's a possibility that there's a connection on any level?
I think they're all connected somehow. I think they're all interrelated or intertwined. Yeah. I don't know how they are, but they all seem to have weird aspects of each other in each other's phenomenon, if that makes sense.
Totally.
You've got different theories when it comes to Bigfoot. You've got UFOs that have supposedly been seen with Bigfoot creatures, and people talking of Bigfoot disappearing. So there seems to be some kind of intermeshing, if you will. And what it is, I have no idea, but that seems to be the case.
Yeah.
Is Kathy in the chair behind you, or one of the cats? Because I watched the chair move behind you.
There's nobody here but me and the dogs.
Okay, well, the whole chair just went.
Well, you know my background in my house, so
yeah. That's
I know.
Why I was like,
sure. Hello.
So I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm like watching the chair, and I'm like, okay, where's they're little dogs, but that whole thing, I'm like, okay, is the cat? Or
all right,
come
on, Eric,
on the floor over here on the floor, but I don't know where Scrappy is.
Okay,
Scrappy's big. We would have seen him come back.
So we'll play that back
house?
later. So yeah, Brian had that. Brian Baum from Bearded actually had that same question there with the connection.
Oh, great minds think alike, Brian.
Yep. So I just wanted to make sure that you had said it and he'd put that in there same time.
Okay, there's Scrappy. Just
most for your investigations. I know you kind of most of your stuff is that Chestnut Ridge area, but how far out do you expand to go to your investigations and for the cryptid world? And what other cryptids besides Sasquatch, Bigfoot are you out pursuing?
I've traveled a good portion of the country, investigating cases and doing field work on my own. I've been to the Pacific Northwest on several occasions. I've been to the Gulf Coast states, Texas and Louisiana, Florida. I'm mainly here in the eastern United States, up and down the Appalachian Trail. the Appalachian Mountains. But I focus most stuff here in Pennsylvania because that's where I'm from, and it's easier to get to some of these cases. And usually when people do report cases, they come from this area. But I mainly Southwestern PA is my home base, if you will. And I've been over to Ohio and New York, West Virginia, Maryland, Virginia. I've been pretty much all over the country, either lecturing or talking about or actually doing my own field work when I go. As far as I don't know how to answer your second question. I love Bigfoot. Bigfoot's always going to be my first passion, but I find the other cryptids fascinating as well. Lake monsters, I think, in my opinion, are nothing more than misidentified fish, or sturgeons, or large seals, maybe possibly giant seals, that sort of thing. And until we have some actual tangible proof or good video evidence, I'm always going to be pointing in that direction. I won't rule out the possibility that there may be something in the ocean that we haven't discovered yet, because the ocean is very vast and we haven't barely touched the surface, if you will, of exploring the ocean. I find the Mothman phenomenon fascinating as well, because there's all kinds of elements of the paranormal intertwined in that. And you've got men in black, UFOs that we're seeing in the Ohio Valley, the actual Mothman creature. So there was paranormal activity going on in Point Pleasant during that time, a lot of poltergeist activity. So I find that very fascinating. The Thunderbirds have also piqued my interest. I've done some cases, researching some Thunderbird cases. Those are the giant birds with a wingspan between 8 to 20 feet in length, usually black, either covered completely with black feathers, or like a reptilian membrane around almost like a pterodactyl or pterodon type of membrane. There's been 2 different varieties seen. So like I said, it's hard to answer that question because I think they're all fascinating. I don't get too involved in the other cryptid cases unless I actually get a cryptid case, because there's quite enough to handle as far as Bigfoot goes. That keeps me really busy. So
yeah.
Okay. The Thunderbird cases, are those PA cases or are those other?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've been Pennsylvania cases that I've gotten, and they've been mainly something large seen flying through the sky, flying over someone's house, or if they're driving, flying over their car, and they get a 10, 15-second look at it, and they describe it, like I mentioned, a large bird, usually black in color, with a huge wingspan, and they see it for only a few seconds as it flies over and disappears into the sky, and they never see it again.
Wow.
Now, is that on the ridge or closer to Allegheny, or?
There's been a couple reports here in Westmoreland County where I live, not far from my hometown of Greensburg, actually South Greensburg. There's been a couple of reports that I've looked into, and we've gotten some cases from the Chestnut Ridge itself over the years. I can't recall the last one. I think maybe in 2014 or 2015 we had a case reported that someone saw a large Thunderbird flying over. But those cases are even more rare than the Bigfoot cases we get.
Okay. From Brian, he's wondering if you've ever been to Rockton, PA.
Yeah, I spent a good portion of the early 2000s in Rockton, up on Rockton Mountain. There was a lot of activity up there from 2000 to probably 2010 or 11. I did a lot of investigations with the PBS and on my own independently, up on the Rockton Mountain. Quite a number of cases and sightings. And actually, the movie Mountain Devil, if you've ever seen that film that was released, that was filmed with the majority of cases from the PBS that took place in the Rockton Mountain area.
And what's the environment, the vegetation and that kind of stuff on the mountain?
Some of it's pretty thick. They have the, of course, Rockton Mountain itself. I want to say S.B. Elliott State Park is up there. Caledonia State Park. No, not Caledonia. I apologize. I can't remember the name of the other park. I just drew a blank. I'll probably remember it during the interview. But there's a couple state parks up there. There's vast wilderness, very heavily forested areas, a lot of lush, thick cover, a lot of good water sources too up on the Rockton Mountain. So yeah, there's a good cover for animals to hang out and make it their habitat. And there's a lot of good food sources. We've seen a variety of different animals up there, from deer. There's elk to the north of Rockton, up in Elk County, and Benezet. There's some elk up there, deer, coyote, bear. There's a huge black bear population up in there too as well. So there's an abundance of food sources, and a good cover for anything to be up in that area.
Cool. Thank you. So you started doing the investigation. You joined the group. How did you get tied into some of the other media, the books and your podcast and the movies, I guess?
Well,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead. Finish your question. I don't know.
No, I was just wondering if one kind of came in, how the order came and how you got involved.
Well, when I was doing the Bigfoot stuff, I was approached by countless people over the years from different forms of media, whether it be newsprint or magazines or even books, approaching me to write an article for their book or write a magazine article or something for the newspaper. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not an author. That's why I haven't written or put out a book yet. Writing is not my forte, but I've done some chapters for books, and I've put out different things, different articles and stuff like that, very short articles. And that led into podcast interviews back in 2006 and 7, maybe 2005. Bigfoot podcasts were just starting into their own, and there was probably about 4 or 5 of them. So I got involved doing interviews with them. From there, I went on to do my own show called Beyond the Edge Radio, and that kind of snowballed into probably about 10 or 11 years on the air with that show, and 400 or 500 episodes of that. The TV and films and documentaries that just came over the years. The longer you're in this, the more you do it, the more your name gets out there. People want to reach out to you and say, hey, can you do an interview for my podcast? Can you do an interview for my documentary? And I think I have 8 or 9 documentaries now I'm in, and hundreds of podcasts and countless newspaper articles, magazine articles, books. So that's how that came about. So
if you're looking for information, search Google Eric's name and you'll find him. I posted, and I'm going to post right now in our chat, where you can find Eric's information. Where, I know you're in some great country where some great investigations, but where is your favorite place to investigate?
It would have to be in Fayette County, up on the Chestnut Ridge. That area itself has had a long history of activity and sightings and encounters and track discoveries, and we still go up there. I haven't done it for a while, but in the last month or so, I've been getting up there about once a week, hitting the trails like I used to do. Before this COVID came along and my health kind of took a downturn for a little bit, I was out probably every weekend hitting the woods with either the PBS or myself or other researchers like Ricky, you mentioned, and Doug. They've been out with me. And so we like to hit the Chestnut Ridge simply because there's always something going on up there. There's always something weird you'll hear up there or see up there or experience. And it's not just the Bigfoot phenomenon. There's a lot of weird stuff that goes up on the ridge. There's UFO sightings that are constantly seen and reported. There's strange creature sightings that are reported up on the ridge. There's a lot of haunted locations up on the ridge that I haven't yet to investigate, believe it or not. But a lot of
we need to do that. For sure.
we got to get through COVID. Well, the ridge is a crazy military history, correct? As well, coming through. Isn't it Washington came through? Or that's a little farther to the east when we kind of. I'm just trying to think when I take the path from my house in Western New York down, it kind of shoots me out and around, and I end up in Maryland and everywhere
and a whole
else.
Bunch of streets you doesn't plan on going down in the first place. Yeah, we know about it.
There's a lot of historical battlefields up there. General Braddock with the French and Indian War. General Washington was through there. There's a couple famous forts. There's Fort Ligonier. There's another fort. The name escapes me at the moment. I'm sure I'll remember it too. It sucks getting old. Don't get old because you lose your memory. But
you're not much older than me, so stop right there.
Either. So.
But there's a couple famous forts and historical battlefields and locations So yeah, they're definitely worth checking out. And some of those are actually reportedly haunted as well. So there's a lot of history to the Chestnut Ridge. Hundreds of years of weird stuff going on up there.
And on that note, well, I was trying to figure out how to figure it in here. You have a new project coming out, correct? On your documentation and history. Can you talk about that now, or are you holding off on that? And with that documentation, do you see anything related to any of those military units having any cryptid sightings while in that area?
Dun, dun, dun.
I'll answer your second question first. And no, I have nothing reporting any of the revolutionary, I wouldn't call it Revolutionary War, but that time frame back in the late 1700s, early 1800s. There's nothing military-wise I could find in the state of Pennsylvania relating to strange cryptids. Even into the present day, I haven't found anything military-related in my search here in Pennsylvania. There may be others across the country, but nothing here. What you're referring to is the project I started when the whole COVID thing came about. And it really wasn't a start to it. It was kind of building on what I already had. I mentioned at the start of the show, I began educating myself when I was a kid, about 10 or 11 years old. I started collecting newspaper articles and magazine articles, clipping them out and putting them in little binders and stuff like that. I didn't have a large collection, but a few years ago, Stan Gordon had an unfortunate flood at his house, and he needed to make some room. So he called me up one day and said, "Hey, I've got boxes of newspaper articles and documents. Do you want them?" And I jumped at the chance. I said, "Sure, yeah. If you have historical stuff, send them over. I'll put them in my binders." So I added those to the collection, and my collection was still relatively small, but at least it was a point that one day I'd hoped to build upon. Right. Well, the COVID started in March, as we know, February, March, and that really gave me the opportunity to start, since I'm working from home, start focusing more on building this archive. And what I've done is I've gone back historically and dug up anything I could find related to cryptids, UFOs, hauntings, anything strange and unusual here in Pennsylvania, and putting them into binders, newspaper articles, magazine articles, printing them out. And I'm also scanning them to upload them to the internet, so that there's going to be a database available probably before the end of the year, with literally thousands of newspaper articles dating back to the 1700s all the way through to present day. I have binders now. I started this as a little collection, but now I have about, looking on my bookshelf now, I probably have about 10 to 12 binders with maybe 500 articles in each binder. And I had to break them down between decades. I mean, from like the 1960s up through the early 2000s, maybe up to 2010, I had to break down in instead of doing 1 decade per binder, I had to do 5 years per binder. There's that much information out there. And there's literally, like I said, thousands. I probably have close to maybe 5,000, 6,000, maybe even higher than that. I haven't counted them. But I have a lot of articles that are going to be released publicly on a database form once I can get a website up and running, where I can actually put those out there for people to use them for historical information and data to hopefully help with their research.
Wow. Where do you keep it all? Is it, you kind of remind me of like Tim Shaw and all those guys that just collect all of this stuff. Like, where do you keep that? Do you have to build another room, or?
Well, right now I'm in my finished basement. This is my Bigfoot Den, if you will, and this is where I keep most of my Bigfoot stuff. On my left wall over there, I have a bookcase full of movies, DVDs, VHS stuff from going back to the early 80s. On my far right wall, I've got the bookcase with all my books and the binders of all my articles. So I keep everything here. Actually, a few years ago, I had to start turning stuff away from people sending me stuff, because I was getting stuff quite often. Hey, I was thinking of you. Here's a book, or here's a cool knickknack, and I have nowhere else to put it.
Right. You're at max capacity.
Space, so.
Wow, very good.
You moved into a bigger house.
Yeah, and I donated a lot of stuff to a good friend of mine. Rick Fisher out in Columbia, Pennsylvania. He had a paranormal museum he opened up, so I donated some of my stuff to him to put in the museum for display, casts and stuff like that. So,
where's that museum located?
It's in Columbia, PA. It's no longer open at the moment. He lost the building due to eviction. Unfortunately, they wanted to raise the price on the rent, and he decided, I'm just going to put stuff in storage. But for about 4 or 5 years, he ran this paranormal museum out there, and he has everything in storage, hoping to find a suitable building to move back into. If you ever get the chance, if it does open up again, you definitely want to check it out. It's a one of a kind place.
So, with all the documentations you've had since your teenage years and up till now, and this great collection, have you seen any commonalities? Even if you tied in some of your investigations to give you some sort of terrain or vegetation or some commonalities you see in the reports?
Not really. I mean, it's all basically the same kind of terrain, and we don't get a lot of reports in populated areas. You will from time to time, but most of the reports are taking place in rural areas, mountainous areas, wilderness, farmland, stuff like that. So we see that more than we do populated, neighborhoods or big cities and stuff like that. We'll occasionally get reports from time to time, but yeah, as far as that goes, it's mainly up in the mountains or some of the valleys close to the mountains, close to the ridge or the mountain ridges.
So when besides in reports, how do you pick a location to go and do your research?
A couple things I do. I look historically first and foremost to see if there have been cases and sightings in that place. And if so, then, I want to really thoroughly look over the area to make sure there's a suitable habitat, make sure there's suitable water sources available and food sources. But water is key, because what I've learned over the years is a lot of the sightings take place around bodies of water, whether they're rivers or creeks, lakes. There's a lot of sightings that take place around waterways and different sources of water. So if I find that there's an ample source of water and good cover, good food, then that's definitely an area I want to check out.
So do you find that you tend to gravitate more towards historical places with history and stories of their own to tell? Or is it a good combination of areas that don't have a history or, stories of their own to tell?
Well, I equate the Bigfoot phenomenon and Bigfoot itself, if it does indeed exist, I equate it to being like a needle in a haystack, but the needle is constantly moving. So you never know where it's going to show up. You don't know when the flap of sightings is going to occur or when somebody's going to have a sighting, if they're going to have a sighting. If we knew that information, we'd be right there in that area waiting for it to happen. We have found some patterns that show that these animals return to certain locations after time, or they remain in that area. And that's why we frequent that area to monitor it and to do our research to see if they're still in that area. And sometimes we get nothing. We come up empty handed. There's no activity. There's no reports. So we could start to look at other areas with history and the same type of cover, food source, that sort of thing. And we sometimes we get lucky. Sometimes, like in the Fayette County area where I mentioned, there's quite a number of sightings and activity going on almost year after year. So we try to keep to an area where we know there the activity is, and we focus on that rather than trying to run around all over the place trying to pick a new area. Simply because when you're one person doing this or a handful of people doing this, it's hard to allocate your resources to a variety of different areas, going from one place to one place and hoping that something's there. So I try to keep close to home and close to where I know there's going to be activity.
Sorry, I should clarify. That was actually very interesting, but I guess my question was geared more towards paranormal. When you said places that have a history, do you find that maybe you gravitate towards, or people are calling you with regards to sightings that have to do with historical places already, like Gettysburg or Chestnut Ridge, or places that maybe have a history that way where there's a lot of energy, period, whether it's spiritual, paranormal, whatever the case is?
Yeah, it seems to be the case here, and places I know have a variety of different phenomenon going on. So if we don't have something cryptid related, perhaps we'll run into something that may be a haunting case or something along those lines. So yeah, I think I'm seeing it because I know Gettysburg has Caledonia, the Mishaw Forest, which is 15, 20 miles to the west, and they've got a number of sightings out there as well. So that's what I'm seeing is there's some, seems like I mentioned earlier, there seems to be some kind of strange intertwining going on of all the phenomenon. Right. The Chestnut Ridge especially, because there's a variety of different subjects that you can easily follow in the Chestnut Ridge.
Right. I find it interesting that as soon as you started to answer that question, you froze. And it's the first time you've had an issue the entire show. Just putting it out there.
Yeah, the spirits don't want me talking about it, I guess.
Very good.
So what's the craziest thing you've seen in the woods?
Besides Mike, in the morning.
I've seen a lot of weird stuff out in the woods. One thing that's come to my attention recently, and I don't have an explanation for it, but it's happened in areas where there's been Bigfoot sightings, and I'm probably going to take a lot of heat for it because a lot of other researchers don't go down this particular path, and I consider myself open-minded. But the weird light or spook light phenomenon in the forest is something that I've seen probably in the last 10 years that's really intrigued me, and I have no explanation for it. I don't know what's causing it, if it's natural or supernatural. I don't know, but I've seen it quite frequently when we go into areas where there's been known Bigfoot sightings or Bigfoot history in that particular area. And I don't know what's causing it. I have no idea, but I've seen them on several different occasions, and some have freaked me out pretty bad. One, I actually had to leave an area because I got an overwhelming feeling of like, we should not be here. This just does not feel right. It doesn't feel normal. I think it's time to go. So we left. But I don't know what that is. And that's probably the freakiest thing that I've seen out in the woods.
Now, when you say spook lights, you're not talking orbs. You're talking more shape or form. I mean, I know you and I and Steve experienced something at the pipeline the one night, which I wish I had a better video camera because that video is, I mean, you can hear us talking, you can see a little blur purpling around, but there's no depth perception of what we were filming. But describe the spook lights if you wouldn't mind.
They're different from each experience. Okay. One experience up in the Rockton Mountain, I mentioned Rockton Mountain. I saw what looked to be the best way to describe it is someone walking and swinging a lantern. An orange light was bobbing back and forth through the trees, swinging back and forth. When we'd approach it, it would go out and we wouldn't see it. We wouldn't hear anything. We wouldn't see anybody moving around. We'd move away from it, back away from it, and that orange light would reappear, bobbing back and forth like someone walking through the trees at night with a swinging lantern. Other occasions, we went to investigate a Bigfoot sighting in 2016. And while we were parked on the side of the road about 100 yards from where the sighting actually took place, I think there was 6 of us saw a white light zipping through the tree line. And the only way I can describe it is it looked like someone with a pen light or a laser pointer, but it was white in color. And at first I thought it was just lightning bugs. The lightning bugs are yellow greenish color, but these were white, and they would move from one tree to another tree and not come out the other side. My sentiments exactly. But it was so strange.
That's my killer.
If you had 2 trees like this, it would come in from this way, it would pass in front of the tree, and it would go behind the other tree, but it wouldn't come out on this side over here. You wouldn't see anything. Then you'd see it over here in the distance, and it would zip up into the tree and disappear. And then it would appear 50 yards over here on the ground, zipping around a tree. What does that? I don't know, but we've seen it on multiple occasions, multiple colors, red, orange, white. Matter of fact, about 3 weeks ago, Ricky, myself, and Tom Mihawk were out in the Chestnut Ridge, and we were having a very active evening, hearing wood knocks, hearing branch breaks in the ravine across the road from us. We actually had a response to our calls. Something whooped back at us. And just before we had all this possible Bigfoot activity, there were these white lights that Tom and Ricky were seeing at tree level, just at treetop, but they were zipping through the trees and moving down the road away from us. And when that ended, we suddenly started having possible Bigfoot activity. So is there a correlation? Is there some kind of connection? I don't know. But it was just really weird that those two phenomenon I'm experiencing this phenomenon quite frequently now. So I don't know. I don't know what it means. I don't know if there's an explanation for it, if it's just overactive imaginations, if there's something natural causing it. I have no idea, but we're seeing it quite often. And it's not just one person seeing it. It's multiple people seeing it. You were there, Mike. You saw the lights.
Ridge?
Yes.
Yeah. I saw the lights, and then we had somebody see the lights before Jay and I heard the scream. And we found the print. I mean, that's everybody was there, and pretty much I had them sign, Yeah.
I can't say that that's Bigfoot related. I can't say it's something, a product of Bigfoot, but it's something that's happening, and I'm finding it more and more happening around where Bigfoot activity is happening. What it is, I don't know.
Those locations, I mean, I know you've got gas mains and stuff running through that particular area that we were at. Do you find that you have a lot of fracking and other, mining and stuff. Do you find it may be related to swamp gas or methane leaks or something like that?
Well, that's always a possibility. You can't rule that out, especially if you're investigating on a gas well line and you're seeing something like that. You can't rule that out. But the one from 3 weeks ago, we were investigating near a windmill, and one of those giant windmills that create electrical energy. Mm-hmm. And matter of fact, it was probably 50, 100 feet behind us in the woods. And we saw those weird lights. So, and something that Stan and I, we've worked together pretty closely on cases, and we're starting to notice more and more that sightings are taking place around energy sources, such as waterways, like I mentioned, gas well lines, power lines, radio cell phone towers. We're starting to document these phenomena taking place around these electrical or power sources. What it means, we have no idea, but we've noticed a pattern starting to form.
What exactly are you finding that you're correlating with these particular areas?
Sighting reports.
So people are actually seeing what they think is Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I have several cases documented over the years of people seeing creatures, and then you just happen to look, and right there within 50 to 100 yards is a gas well line or a power line or a radio cell phone tower, radio tower. We've noticed it more and more, and we're like, oh, this is really strange. Could there be some kind of electrical aspect to it? We don't know, and I'm not going to make any speculations or make any kind of rash decisions on it, but we're noticing a pattern more and more.
What do you think, though? So then on the paranormal side of things, energy has a lot to do with things getting ramped up. So do you think it's possible that they're interdimensional, or that just
That's my dog.
Oh, it's so blurry. All of a sudden I'm like, what is that? Because I've seen him crystal clear up until now. And all of a sudden there's just like a shadow kind of thing. Okay.
That's Scrappy.
Okay, yeah, we watched him go back and forth, but he looks really different right there. So, but you know what I mean? Because, the whole idea of being, things being interdimensional, or being able to travel from plane to plane, or astral projecting, things that some of us can do. Again, we're human, it can be real. So we know that power sources in water ramp up that kind of energy and make it easier on some level for us to do those things and encourage it almost. So what do you think about that line of thought, or that,
It's possible. Anything is possible at this point because we don't have enough information. We don't know if there's a connection or not. It seems evident that there are things going on that can link them all together, but we don't have enough information to really say one way or the other. But it's fascinating that people are having sightings near these waterways and near electrical sources and stuff like that. There possibly could be a connection. We don't know at this point.
In your opinion, you're not really sure what you're seeing. You're not sure. Okay.
Yeah, I just don't know. I find it fascinating, and perhaps there is a connection. I don't know.
I may have dumped Christy on a location on starting last week where it had all of the above. So, we got.
It's a really bad habit of doing that kind of stuff to me.
Yeah. So, that. Like I said, I listen to what you guys say.
So where do you leave you this time?
Yeah, we left her on some windmills one night. That was her first adventure with a screen.
Oh yeah, it's great.
So we were definitely looking to get down there. We had interviewed Doug a couple of weeks ago, and getting down to his location for his sighting, would be. And were you guys on that particular windmill or somewhere near that?
About a quarter mile from where he had his experience.
That particular area, is the ground full of caves, or is it a pretty stable area where I had other sighting reports near windmills, and there seems to be, that top of that hill, but what's going down into, you've got that mechanical spin up. Do you think maybe that's putting something into the ground?
Again, it's possible. There are a series of caves that run through the Chestnut Ridge, especially that area, probably from the area where Doug had his experience in sighting and where we were, and we've continued to research to the Laurel Caverns is probably about 2.5, 3 miles. There's a major tourist attraction called the Laurel Caverns, and it's a huge underground network of caves and caverns that run at the top of the ridge. And there's quite a number of caves, maybe even connected to that Laurel Cavern. We don't know, but there's a lot of it that's still unexplored. And there could be something connecting the power created by those the turbines going down into the ground. I don't know. But you did bring up a good point. There are a lot of caves, and there are a lot of windmill towers up there on the ridge.
What is your coolest Bigfoot experience?
Oh, geez. I've had some really cool ones. It's funny because I get asked this all the time. What's your scariest or what's your coolest experience? And man, I've had so many really cool experiences and some really terrifying ones over the years. Probably going back to the Chestnut Ridge, back to that windmill construction site where that's how I first met Doug. He had a sighting back in 2000, I think it was 11. He had a sighting there at that construction site, and his security crew that he was the supervisor for, they were being harassed by something coming around the site almost on a nightly basis, screaming at them, whooping, wood knocks, and they had no idea what it was until finally Doug had his sighting. And we went up and investigated just a few days after he had a sighting, and that place was so active with screams and howls and wood knocks and thermal imaging of something large moving around through the trees. We could see it in the thermal imager. Eye shine. Matter of fact, you mentioned Tim. He was with us. He actually attended a Bigfoot outing with us on that one.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah, we walked away scratching his head. I'm sure, but there was a lot of
interesting one because he'd be coming at it from all different angles. With all of his different experiences and what he does. That's cool.
Yeah, he and I were talking through different podcasts, and we knew each other back then. And I invited him to come down for a Bigfoot outing, and he joined us that weekend. And we had a team of probably about 20 individuals on that construction site, and they were spread out. The site is so vast and so big, you could actually spread out people in different corners, and they wouldn't be overlapping each other. And everybody on that construction site had an experience, whether they were hearing the screams and the howls, the wood knocks, seeing the eye shine, hearing the heavy breathing through parabolic microphones. Everybody walked away with something happening to them that weekend.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I got to hear what it felt like, know what it felt like to have coyotes around me.
That can be intense too.
That was a little unnerving.
Yeah. That can be pretty intense too, because you never know where they're coming from, and people seem to have this misconception that when you're in the woods, you know your surroundings, but at night when it's dark, sounds can travel, and they can seem to be coming from one direction when they're actually coming from another. So it's very easy, if you're not familiar with the section of woods, to get yourself turned around and hear things that may or may not be there.
Right. Nah, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Oh, God. You look like you have something to say, Michael.
Oh, let me just quick housekeeping, folks. Please like, share, and subscribe. Get the word out here. If you have any questions for Eric, please drop them into the comment section, and we will get them out there. It's not always my questions. We are a big family at Where's My Sage. So if you have some questions, put them up at Facebook or YouTube in our little group, and we'll get these questions out to Eric. Absolutely. So have you had a visual sighting yourself?
I saw something in 2008, and I don't know what it was. I can't say it was a Bigfoot, but I saw it for like a split second, if that. I might as well tell you the whole story because it's an interesting one. It really is. In 2008, it was in October. To small presentation to a.
We're losing you for some reason.
You lost me again?
Yeah. Let me see if I can bring you in and bring you out again. One. No. Yeah. Let's see if that works.
I see myself.
Okay. Yeah. And on our end, you're cloudy.
Yeah.
We can see the dogs and everything around you nice and clear, but you.
Yep.
Are out of focus. It's really interesting.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. I've been told I have a really strange aura, so maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But my possible sighting occurred in October of 2008. I was scheduled to give a lecture to a Bigfoot research group over at Salt Fork State Park in Ohio. So I traveled over with my son on Friday, and we had heard from a fellow researcher that there was possible activity going on at a residence not far from the park. So myself, a couple of the researchers got together at the park, and we drove to this residence, and we spent the night there sitting out on the property. Nothing happened. It was relatively a quiet evening. So we decided we'd head back to the state park, and my son wanted to go to bed. So I dropped him off at the resort, and myself and another researcher, Mike Feltner, decided we were going to drive around some of the picnic areas where there have been sightings in the past and see if we could catch up with some other researchers that we knew that frequented this park. So the first place we went to was an area called the Handicap Picnic Area, and it's probably about 3 or 4 miles from the main resort. And it's a pretty secluded area. It has one large pavilion right in the center with 2 bathrooms. It goes back a far distance into the forest itself, and there's another smaller pavilion in the background. And we went there first because there's been sightings. Matter of fact, if you ever remember the TV show Monster Quest, they did an Ohio episode where they show that actual picnic area. But we went there. Mike and I did. We were out in the field probably till about 1:30, 2 o'clock. We heard stuff in the brush in the ravine below us moving around. We figured it was deer. Nothing really out of the ordinary or exciting was going on. So we decided to just kind of move around the park into a different area and see if we could hear something else or experience something else. So we went down the hill about a mile away to a place, a parking area that we parked in, and we got out of the vehicles. It was probably going on maybe 2:30. No, he needs his insulin.
Has he eaten?
Yes. Sorry, we have to give the dog insulin.
It's okay.
But, okay. Woody's the man.
never a dull moment. But long story short, we went to this other picnic area and parking lot. We were sitting in the parking lot. We were setting up recording equipment and our parabolics and whatnot. And as I'm just about to get my recorder out, I hear this huge, powerful scream come off the hillside across the lake from us, and close to where we had just been. And Mike and I both looked at each other like, what in the world was that? And as soon as it was done screaming, the coyotes went crazy and they started barking and yelping. And we knew that something loud screamed at us. We didn't know what it was, but it was enough to stir up the coyotes and make them start yelping and barking and howling. And we stayed in the parking lot for another probably half an hour, and then everything went quiet. We were like, oh, that's really strange. It was real active, and now it just went dead. So Mike and I figured it's 4:30 going on 5 o'clock. Maybe we should start to wrap things up and call it a night. And I said, why don't we stop back at the handicap picnic area prior to us going back to the lodge and the resort and just, take one last quick look around and see what happens. So we drove up to the picnic area. Nobody's there. No vehicles are parked. There's no other researchers there. We pull in and get out of the vehicle. And as soon as I got out of the vehicle, I had this really strange, the best way I can describe it is like an electrical surge come over me. Like when you get the feeling like something's watching you, you get those pricklies on your arm, your hair stands up and you get that like surge down your arms. That's what I got. And I said to Mike, I said, the atmosphere is different here. He said, yeah, I kind of feel it too. It just feels weird. I said, yeah, I just got this like tingling up and down my arms. I call it spidey sense, if you will. And we started walking into the field, heading back towards the smaller pavilion at the far end of the picnic area. And as we're walking in, I hear this huge thud on the ground in front of us. And Mike jumps backwards, almost knocks me down, spins around and runs back to the car. And he's like, let's get out of here. Let's get out of here. And I'm like, what is your problem? He's like, let's just get out of here. And here I went back to the vehicle to get in the vehicle. He's panicking, trying to get the car door open. And I'm standing there going, what's wrong? He had seen a rock thrown at us about the size of a couch cushion pillow. And it hit the ground. I heard it, but he saw it come out of this brush in front of us. I never saw it, but I heard it. And he's freaking out, wanting to get in the car. I'm like, all right, well, that's why we're here. But he wanted to go. So I unlocked the car, got in the car, and he's yelling at me, let's go, let's go, let's go. I backed the vehicle out and I put my high beams on and I'm facing this way. And when I back up, I swing the car this way. And when I swing the car this way, my high beams go across this 4-foot high brush. And at that point, I saw something, and I don't know what it was, but it looked like a tall, dark figure stand up, and it had bluish white eye shine reflect at me for, like I said, a second or two. And my first instinct was, what in the F was that? So I pulled the car back in, put the high beams on the bush, and there's nothing there. So I said to Mike, I said, did you see that? And he said, no, I didn't see anything. Let's just get out of here. So I grabbed my spotlight from the front seat, got out of the car, and I was shining the spotlight on the brush with the high beams looking, and there's nothing there. It was quiet. There was no noises. And I'm like really perplexed. I'm like, okay, I saw something there. I don't know what it was, but for a split second or two, there was something behind that bush. My adrenaline's going. Mike's all excited and he's upset at the same time. He wanted to leave, so we left. Drove back to the lodge, dropped him off. I went in the lodge, laid down, slept for about 2 or 3 hours, but I was so excited about what had happened, the possibility that I saw something. I wanted to get back up there as quickly as I could. So I drove back up there that next morning, probably around 8:30, 9 o'clock, went to that exact spot, and I'm looking around for clues. I'm looking around for any kind of sign. I walked behind the brush, and all the grass behind the brush was trampled like something big was walking around behind the brush. I followed a trail that went down into the woods of matted grass. And grant you, it looked like a person walked down through this tall grass. And it went down in the woods. I lost track of it. But I got about maybe 100 yards down in the woods looking for any kind of other sign, and I began to hear wood knocks. And these were very loud, unsolicited wood knocks coming from the ravine below where I was. And
in the morning, during the day?
This is during the day in the morning, about 9 o'clock in the morning. And this is very close to where we heard the scream come off the hillside from where we were parked earlier that morning. So that's the only time I've ever seen anything. What it was, I have no idea. I didn't get a good enough look at it. It just looked like a big shadow just stood straight up and not bending up like if you were a person standing up. It just went straight up like that. I have no clue what it was. It looked to have like almost a whitish, bluish color eye shine reflect in my high beams when I saw it. And my reaction when I saw it was, what the F is that? Pull back in with the high beams right where I saw it, and there's nothing there. So I have no idea.
And Mike didn't he have a face-to-face encounter in Ohio? He's one of the Night Stalkers, right? Mike Feltner. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, he did in later years in I believe it's Adams County, which is down near Cincinnati. He and his research partner, Mike Miller, the Ohio Night Stalkers, they've had some encounters down there. I don't know if he's actually had a sighting or not, but I know he came close to seeing something that was peeking out from behind a tree at him. What that was, I have no idea, but he could probably elaborate.
Well, I was just saying, I'm trying to figure out if his experience was prior to your experience there or not, where he had already had that oh, this is bad. I already been here once. I'm not going to be here.
No, his sighting with me in 2008 was his first, if you want to call it face-to-face experience.
Okay.
He saw a rock, a very large rock hit the ground and bounce off the ground in front of us. I heard it hit the ground and make the thud noise. I didn't see it. Interestingly enough, when he said he saw it and he described the size of it, when I went up the next morning to look around for evidence, there was no rocks that size on the ground. There was maybe a couple small rocks, but that was it. So I have no explanation for it.
How many times have you had rocks thrown at you?
Quite a few. Especially up on the Rockton Mountain, which I talked a little bit about earlier. For about 3 or 4 weekends in a row, we were going back to the same location, and almost seemed like whatever was there didn't want us there, because as soon as we'd arrive and get equipment set up, the rocks would start flying. And you could literally hear them coming through the tree branches and the leaves. And there was, behind us where we had set up, there was a fence that the Game Commission put up, the DCNR put up to keep deer out of a certain area of the forest so they could regrow plants and trees. They didn't want the deer population destroying it. So they put a fence up, and we could hear the rocks flying by us and hitting the fence behind us. And I told some other fellow researchers about it. We went up, like I said, on a couple different occasions, and one of them actually had a rock come pretty close to hitting him in the head, where he heard it whiz by his ear. And a few weekends later, when we went back up again, I thought he was joking, but he was being serious about it when he pulled out a hard hat out of the back of his vehicle to put on his head. He said, "I'm not getting hit in the head," which I don't blame him.
Smart man.
We took an Ohio researcher over with us, and she was doing some digging in her bag to get the equipment out. And while she was bent down, a rock went over the top of her head and missed her by inches and hit the metal fence that we were setting up against. So, yeah, for 3 or 4 weeks, probably in the summer, early fall of 2009, 2010, we had rocks thrown at us at a series of weekends up there. There's been other occasions where we went out in the woods. I was out with Ricky Chirby, myself, a couple other researchers, Sean and Tiffany Dennis, and we were on a property where there'd been sightings taking place prior to us arriving. That's why we were there to investigate. And I went off in the bushes to relieve myself, and something threw a rock at me and landed just at my feet. And that was unexpected, let's say that. But it's happened on a couple occasions, and I have no explanation for it. The only thing I can think of that throws rocks would have to be something with an opposable thumb. So it's either got to be a human or a Sasquatch.
Well, why are they throwing them at you? Because sometimes you just get what knocks, sometimes you just get screams, sometimes you get the responses when you do those things. Before it to get physical, it almost seems like it was defensive or protective for some reason. They don't, not that they can't be aggressive or have a bad day, because God knows, we all can be like that, Mike especially. But when it comes down to it, I'm just kidding.
I heard it.
I know you did. But really, do you think that it's possible when they become aggressive like that, it's because you're in their territory, whether they're trying to just let you know, okay, you're in my neighborhood, you're on my turf, or maybe they have young, or maybe they have something to take care of or protect, because they're not all like that. Well, at least from what, the research shows and what other people have said.
Some of the research that I've done over the years, I've looked into primate behavior, and I wanted to see if there was any kind of link between actual primates and Bigfoot, because that was my first thought of when I got into this. Was Bigfoot was an undiscovered primate, an unknown primate that just hasn't been classified. So I started studying primate behavior, and that's something that chimpanzees and other primates do. They throw rocks and sticks at predators. Like if they're in a tree and a big cat, a tiger or something like that effect comes at them, they throw stuff at animals to drive them off.
Okay.
So there's a possible correlation between other primates and Bigfoot doing that. And it may be territorial. It might be a warning sign like, hey, you're not supposed to be here. This is my living room and I don't want you here. So I'm going to throw rocks at you. And I don't know of too many researchers. I'm sure it's happened, and I've probably heard of people getting hit with rocks, but for the most part, the reports and things I've heard of, they come pretty close. So
not hard enough, obviously. Just saying.
yeah, they'll come in your direction. They usually miss the person by a foot or several inches.
Yeah, almost like it's a warning, right?
Yeah,
I
I think that was intentional, Mike.
Oh, it was intentional. You're swearing or me just going, why am I here? No. The little one. I think it was to distract us so something else could get behind us.
Right.
It's possible, yeah.
Right. And just saying this, Melanie just popped on here. Melanie Rimkes. She's, I don't know if you're familiar with her. She is, hi Mel. She is also a medium and Reiki master. She's a mentor, friend of mine as well, but she's huge into Bigfoot, and she's actually had her own sighting. She was on our show a couple of months ago. We interviewed her, and she has her own story to tell about that. So yeah, you guys would have a lot to talk about. She's really cool. So
Nice.
Yeah, very interesting.
Do you have, with your databases, do you have a database of sounds that you guys have recorded and been able to compare them? Maybe like, I know you've interviewed so many other people, I don't with Moorhead's, Sierra Sounds or some of the others, being a BFRO guy, but have you compared your stuff to others?
Yeah, I had some recordings that were up on the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society website, but that was taken down, and I don't know what happened to them. When I left the group back in 2014, 2015, turned everything over to them, and the site was disassembled, and I don't know where they went. I don't have them on file any longer, but I do have some recordings of my own that I've kept, and they don't sound like what I'm used to hearing sound. Of course, I've heard the whoops and the howls and the screams and stuff like that, and I've recorded a few of those over the years that sound similar to others, but a couple of the recordings that I've had recently in the past couple of years don't sound like what you would expect them to sound like. The database I have of sounds, it's fairly small. It's not a large database of sounds. Usually when I go out, if I set a recording out or tape digital recorder or something like that to record sounds, usually I get owls and coyotes and stuff like that. So it's very rare that you get a Bigfoot recording. If you want to call it a Bigfoot recording, it's most of the sounds can be easily identified as common wildlife, though.
What do you use for software to compare those sounds? Like Cornell's, database or something like that. I just started carrying the bird.net so I can record what's going on and say, oh, no, that's a heron screaming in the background, or, an owl or a crow or something like that.
There's a couple good databases online. Stan Courtney is a researcher from, I believe he's from Illinois, Indiana area, and he's recorded different sounds over the years. So I go to his site quite frequently to listen and see if there's anything I've recorded. But I also go to common wildlife websites to listen to sounds, whether it be on YouTube or, for example, I think it was a coyote. I'll Google coyote sounds, and I'll go through all the different sites because there's a variety of different recordings. I don't know of anything particular. The Cornell's a good site, but off the top of my head, I can't give you a specific site that I go to. I just go online and Google, blue heron, for example. If I'm looking for a sound like that, I want to find a variety of different sounds so I can compare what I heard, because not all animals make the same sounds.
Right.
I'll give you an example. We recorded some what are barred owl sounds, and this happened this past Saturday night, and the barred owl screamed at us prior to making its hooting sound. And there's been people that have misidentified that scream as Bigfoot screams, when I've heard it many times before, and I've actually been able to Google and YouTube and look through various bird sites and heard that barred owl sound making that scream prior to it hooting. So I was able to say, okay, that's an owl. Right. But there's a variety of different good sources out there. If you just go on SoundCloud or YouTube, or if you Google the topic you're looking for to compare it to, you can find a lot of good information.
Melanie has a good question there.
Yes, she does. Do you think the sounds are from different breeds or different kinds of Bigfoot?
That's a hard question to answer, because we really don't know if the sounds we're recording are true Bigfoot sounds. And what I mean by that is I didn't see the Bigfoot open its mouth to make that sound. We're hearing a strange or unusual sound coming from the forest, and we're recording it. We can't match it with a known animal. We're looking through the databases, so we can assume it's a Bigfoot sound. But I personally think they have a variety of different vocal abilities. They can whistle, they can grunt, they can howl, they can scream, they can whoop. They make a variety of different sounds. And even if you listen to Ron Moorhead's tapes, they have some kind of, if those are Bigfoot sounds he recorded, they have some kind of language that they're able to communicate with each other. And some people call it the samurai chatter, where it sounds like a samurai warrior speaking in Japanese, yelling at somebody else. Other people have claimed they've heard mumbling in the woods. We heard some kind of weird male voice talking Saturday in the woods. Unfortunately, my audio recorder didn't capture it, but the three of us that were out there heard what sounded like a male voice talking, but it was a low murmur, if you will, like we couldn't understand what it was saying. And that was actually, as a matter of fact, Mike, that was that same area, that same clearing where you've been to. Okay. And we heard it coming from the woods behind us, coming off that main road. We have no idea. I ran in the woods to see what it was. Tom followed me in, Ricky followed me in. We didn't see anything, but we heard something that sounded like a male voice speaking. We just couldn't make out what it was saying.
And that's so if you're standing at the clearing looking up the line,
it would be to your left.
Okay. So where those guys saw something walk around right after we had the scream. So. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't Chirby talking to himself.
No.
Wow. I don't even know him enough to pick up for him. What the heck, man?
We'll get Ricky on here.
Ricky's had a sighting up there. I'll let him tell you about his sighting on that gas well line. But he saw something step out onto the gas well line and back into the woods. And whatever it was really tall.
Very interesting. Very
and
interesting.
Joe, who we've interviewed, was there for that. Yeah, it was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got the print still here.
Yeah. Spit it out. Don't hurt yourself.
So, what was the scariest encounter?
I have to think on that because, like I said, I've had a few over the years. And
is there any place you won't go back to because you were like, no, that ain't good?
Good question.
Where I saw the red light snaking around the bottom of the trees, that was in 2015. And that wasn't necessarily Bigfoot related because we didn't hear any Bigfoot sounds, but I got a really weird, bad feeling about that spot. So I'll go back, but I'm a little hesitant.
Okay.
What's freaked me out, I think, not necessarily hearing a Bigfoot or possibly hearing a Bigfoot, is actually seeing what this thing is capable of doing. And I'll give you a couple of examples. We interviewed a kid back in 2016 whose family, this is the same one, I had a rock land at my feet. He came home from a party with his friends one night. He wasn't supposed to be out. And he's sneaking home, coming down the hill to his driveway. He shuts the car off, puts it in neutral, and coasts into the driveway. His high beams pick up something. He sees movement near a tree right at the edge of his driveway that drops down into a ravine where there's a creek. He sees movement. So he gets out of his vehicle, and as he's standing there looking, he sees this very tall, hair-covered creature standing in the ravine looking at him. And this thing's about 4.5 feet over the driveway. So it's standing in a 4.5 foot deep ravine to begin with. So we're estimating it's about 9 feet in height. And he tells us that he's so freaked out by what he's seeing, he runs in the house. And his bedroom is on the basement floor of this house. So he runs in the basement door, shuts the door, runs into his bedroom, shuts his bedroom door, and turns off all the lights and is quiet. This thing comes up onto the porch and starts moving things around on the porch. It picks up a porch glider swing and moves it. It picks up his mother's electric, I guess you call it rascal or wheelchair, those hover round things. It picked it up and threw it. It picked up a box that had a windmill, one of those high weather vane type windmill things that you see on farms. Yeah. It weighs about 300 pounds, and it picked it up and it threw it. It tried to come in the basement door. It was shaking and jiggling the door handle, and he sat in his basement, total quiet. And he told us all this stuff, and I saw that the hover round was destroyed. I saw the swing had been moved, and he told us about the box that had the windmill in it that had picked up and moved. And he said there was a handprint in it. And I thought to myself, okay, yeah, I'd like to see this. Well, when he opened his basement door and took us in to show us this box, I was almost literally floored when he showed us the box. In the box was an impression of a handprint, 5 fingers, a thumb, 4 fingers, that was about 2.5 times the size of my hand. And I was just shocked to see a hand that large in a box. And Mike, I can send you pictures when we're off the air, so you can see how big this handprint was. Stuff like that, when I see, it just blows my mind, because you hear all these stories about people saying they see them, how large they are, how massive they are, but you never really, unless you see it for yourself, you can't comprehend the size of these things. And then when you're suddenly face to face with possible evidence of a hand impression in a box that's 2.5 times the size of your hand, that's a little unnerving. Yeah. Another situation, Stan and I were called to a family's home in Armstrong County where they had claims of activity going on for months. They were hearing monkey chatter. The husband saw a creature across the road from his house in an opening of the trees, standing there looking at him as he was getting undressed from hunting in the woods that day. They'd heard screams and howls in the backyard. Their dogs were afraid to go out. He said on occasion they would hear trees being pushed over. And that's something that Bigfoot is reported to do, is when you're in their area or their territory, they get angry and they push a tree over. It's a defense mechanism or a territorial mechanism where they don't want you to come back where they're at. So they were hearing these things. And the guy said, would you like to see some of this tree damage that we found? And I was like, yeah, sure. Let's go back and take a look at it. And we walked into the backyard, into the woods behind his home. I saw tree branches that were about 8 feet off the ground, snapped like toothpicks. And they weren't from wind damage. They weren't from rotting trees. They weren't from lightning strikes. They were literally branches that were pulled down to the ground and snapped like a toothpick. And these aren't just your typical 3 or 4 inch round trees. These are big trees that have been there for hundreds of years. Oak trees, maple trees. And to see that kind of damage to the trees. And then I started thinking to myself, okay, maybe it's weather. But as we found these trees, they weren't in clusters where you would expect if a microburst came through, it would destroy a bunch of trees in that same vicinity. It was one solid tree without the other trees or bushes in that area just destroyed. And then 100 yards later, you find another tree where a huge branch was broken and pulled down and nothing else was touched. So it was almost like this creature was doing it to either scare the family out of the woods or marking its territory. I don't know. But to see something like that and realize that as a person, there's no way in hell I could break a branch like that and pull it down, and see the branches that were busted, the way they were snapped and pulled down. It would take something with tremendous strength to do that. And again, that's unnerving, thinking, okay, I'm out here in the woods. If something has the ability to do that to a tree, it could break my neck like that. It could break somebody in half, rip somebody in half without even trying. And that's a little unnerving. That really makes you think, man, do I really want to be out here with the creature that has that ability to do that to somebody, to a human, if you make it mad enough? So that's stuff like that. When you see damage done to a tree, or your mind finally puts into the concept of how big things can be, that can be unnerving. It really can. It's like, the best way I can describe it is like having a dream, and the dream is so real, but then you wake up and it actually happened. It's right there in front of your face. And how do you react to something like that?
Right. Been there, done that, but on a paranormal level. That's for sure.
I know you're not a big tree structure guy, but have you found, let's say, breaks as markers, where you could see that they're spaghetti twisted, I guess is the best way to put them, and lined up in certain directions, or in your sightings or that kind of thing? Or
I'm on the fence about the tree stackings. I think some of them are caused by weather. Some of them may be man-made. I've known people that have done that on purpose. I can't rule them all out as man-made and weather damage, though. I've seen some on occasion that looked like they were twisted like a wash rag. If you take a wash rag to wring it out, or a bath towel to wring it out, that's what the branches look like. It's twisted and broken. I've seen them on several different occasions, and I know in order to take a branch, it's got to be a person or something with thumbs to hold, to twist, to make that twisting motion. I've seen some tree structures that I've walked away thinking, well, how did somebody do that? How is it possible that they pulled this branch down from that tree and bowed it, but yet slid it under this branch and intertwined this branch? And it just doesn't seem physically possible for it to fall naturally that way, or for weather to cause it. You know, it's almost like threading a needle with the string. A branch is going through a V, but yet there's something coming down on top of it. It shouldn't naturally go that way. So those kind of perplex me. I don't have explanations for them. One case in particular, up on the Rockton Mountain, and this is the same area where we've had countless Bigfoot experiences, the rock throws and all that. When I first started going up the Rockton Mountain, we found an area that was probably about 100-foot square area that had all these tiny little tree stackings. And they looked like little teepees. They were branches laid up against the bases of trees the whole way around them, or they were put together like teepees. And we counted maybe 50 to 100 of them, and it's just 100 square foot area, but nowhere else. And we go back a week later, and there's no existence. There's no sign at all of any of these little teepees that were there a week earlier. They're completely removed. And that still to this day has me scratching my head as to, did somebody do that on purpose and come back up and just destroy everything? No explanation for it.
What other evidence are you finding when you're out there? I know you've got the screams. You found those. Are you finding hair? Are you finding, I know you found prints. We found prints together. What's the best evidence you've seen pop up in front of you?
A couple things that we've had some interesting finds. Again, up on the Rockton Mountain, there is a field, a clearing about maybe a mile and a half down through the woods on this trail that just suddenly opens up. And in the trail, there were about 7, 8 pine trees. Maybe they were about 5 or 6 feet tall, and they weren't these giant spruce trees. They're just small, like Christmas tree type trees. About 8 of them in the field, and we made a discovery where all the tops of the pine trees were broken off and snapped down. In other words, the tree would come to a point, and that point was snapped and bent down or twisted down. And right at the breaks of several of those trees on different occasions, we found very thin strands of look almost like coarse hair. We've collected with sterilized tweezers, put them in paper envelopes. And for anybody that wants to collect hair, do not put it in plastic baggies or plastic containers. That holds condensation, and that will destroy the evidence, the DNA. Put them in an acid-free envelope, because that'll keep them dry and keep them safe. But we had collected several of those hairs. We sent them off to Dr. Jeff Meldrum. I think he got back to me and told me that he believed they were bear hair, but they were so degraded and they were so destroyed as far as the hair itself that he really couldn't get a DNA sample from. But looking under microscopes, from what he could tell, he thought they were possibly bear hair. On a couple other occasions, we found hair where they've come back as human hair, which makes no sense as to why a human would be doing what we've found on those trees. But that's what we were told. So hair is probably the coolest thing we found, and we found it probably on 2 or 3 occasions up there on the Rockton Mountain, incidentally on those same types of trees.
Wow.
Cool. From Doug, one encounter you told him about, this sticks in his mind, a 12-year-old boy from Dunbar who was riding his quad and trailer he was familiar with and had an encounter with Bigfoot. Very interesting if you could tell the other people watching. So the Dunbar story, Doug's wondering about.
Yeah, there's a couple interesting encounters with kids riding their quads, but this one occurred, I believe it was on the Dunbar, Ohio Pile Road that runs up to Camp Carmel. And a young man was riding actually Dave Dragazin got the report and passed it on to me, but a young boy was riding his ATV or quad along the side of the road there and had a creature come up out of the creek bank and start chasing him. And he turned around and drove his quad the other direction, and it chased him for a good ways on that road before he finally was able to lose it. That happened back in 2009, I want to say, and it's actually right near the Dunbar Mines, if that's the same case that Doug is referring to. I don't know if David ever talked to the kid. I never found out who the kid was, but that came to me through David. He passed that report on to me, but I was never able to find out who the kid actually was. There's been a couple of reports and encounters in that Dunbar area where people have been out quadding or riding on their quads or ATVs and seeing a creature either walking across the trail in front of them or in the forest as they drove by over the years.
Wow. So I'm curious, is there anything about this field that you want people to know that you don't normally hear about, whether it's advice, whether it's why people do what they do with this in this field? Maybe it's the flip side or the flip perspective on things. For example, when people, come to me for a reading or I'm going to do a show, a lot of times you don't hear about why a medium does what we do, and I have to explain that we don't just deliver messages and connect with spirit to help those who have passed away. We also do it to help spirit themselves. So, and you don't hear a lot of that, spirit has a lot of work to do when they're in the light and when they're not in the light. So we also do what we do to help them reach out to sometimes make amends or to grow in a different way or help them to complete a task or a journey that they're on so that they can ascend or do what they have to do on the other side. So, a lot of people say, you don't know that unless someone actually tells you, and for whatever reason, it's not something that's talked about. It's just, and it's something that I found is important that I tell people because they have no idea and it makes so much sense to them, and sometimes they're even more willing to help or deal with somebody who's coming forward for them when they don't want to, because then you know why it's happening. So can you take that and put that into Bigfoot terms? But that kind of idea, like, is there anything out there that you find that's important that maybe doesn't get said?
Well, I think one aspect that's kind of missing, how do I explain this? In a way, we're kind of therapists, if you will, for people that have had Bigfoot sightings, because I know a lot of people are terrified. It's a traumatic event. It's changed their life. They want answers. So when they talk to a researcher who's been doing this for a long time, we're able to provide some of those answers or maybe give them some kind of closure to what they experienced. I mean, I'll use Doug, for example. Doug's a good friend of mine. I've known him for a while, but what he experienced up there at the windmill construction site and his workers, it messed up some of his workers. They were afraid of what they were experiencing. I mean, one guy screamed out the back of his truck thinking it was all a big joke, and then suddenly 10 minutes later, something's screaming back at him. And Doug's sighting, he didn't know what was going on up there until he saw it. And to some people, that's traumatic. I mean, like I mentioned, the kid who had this sighting, he was literally crying in tears when he told us his encounter. So I wouldn't call us therapists per se, but in a way, they're looking to tell their story to somebody. They want to say, what did I see? What did I hear? What did I experience? Right. And they want to be taken seriously, where they're not thought of as crazy. I'm not losing my mind. I did see what I saw. I experienced it. I just want somebody to hear my story and believe me and not think I'm nuts. And that's what we kind of provide for eyewitnesses, is almost like a sounding board, if you will, that they can tell us what they experienced or saw. And I'm not going to judge them. I'm not going to say, you're full of crap. You need to go back on your medicine, or you're bipolar or whatever. No, I want to hear what they have to say to me. I believe what they're telling me for most of the part, although there are people that have fabricated and made stuff up. You learn to read people's body language and the way they're experiencing or telling their experience to you. You learn those signs over the years. But when somebody comes to me and tells me what they experienced, for the most part, I'm going to take them seriously. I'm not going to give them negative feedback and say, nah, you just saw a bear. You're full of crap. I want to be able to provide that at least relief to let them know that they're not going insane, that they possibly did see what they saw. And then I try to provide answers for them by investigating.
Right.
So if I get a call and a housewife says, I'm hearing something around my house almost every night. It's scaring me to death. I don't know what it is. Can you come tell me? And I go to their house and I investigate and I come back and say, you're hearing a bear. We found bear tracks. We found sign of bear. So you can relax. It's a bear. Just don't go outside at night. Keep your animals in. Everything will be fine. That provides some comfort for them. But if it's a Bigfoot, I'm going to be honest with them and say, we're finding things and we're hearing things and you know, we're leaning towards it being possibly a Bigfoot. So you need to take these precautions to protect your family, your pets, your livestock, whatever the situation may be. So in a way, it's kind of like a therapist or a sounding board for people, for them to share their experiences, get it off their chest, and know that someone's going to take them seriously rather than making fun of them.
Yes.
If that makes any sense.
Oh, you're speaking my language. 100%. Yes.
When you say protect the house and protect the livestock, what are you suggesting for a family that's having those kind of experiences?
If there's something coming around the house that you're worried about, or if let's say it is a Bigfoot, put up outdoor lights, motion detector lights that come on as soon as they do, because if that light is on and something comes around the house, the creature's more likely going to stay out of the light, so it won't come close to the house. Livestock, keep your livestock in the barn, locked up in pens. Anything that a Bigfoot can't get in and kill them for food, keep them safe and protected. If that means you have to sit out on your porch with a shotgun and protect your animals, then that's what you have to do. I don't condone killing a Bigfoot, but protecting your family, protecting your property, protecting your animals is important to do. So I tell people, take precautions if you're afraid of this thing coming around, because it does provide comfort for them, but it also provides a sense of security that if it is in fact a Bigfoot coming around, you got those lights on, those motion lights on, and you're keeping your animals, your pets inside at night, and your livestock safe and protected during the evening when you can't be out there. That's going to provide security and peace of mind for them.
Eric, how many cases do you see where livestock have come up missing? Or the Jan Clement, cow issue.
Well, we won't get into the Jan Clement cow issue because that's rated R. But
Oreo cows?
No, not Oreo cows.
Oreo cows?
I'll explain later.
Yeah,
there's a book up here. I'll let you read.
Oh, goody!
One of the rare occasions I've heard that happening, but. There's been cases where people's pets have disappeared. One in particular up in Fayette County. The family had indoor-outdoor cats, and they one by one began vanishing. Unfortunately, we found remains of some of the cats on the hillside above their home that were mid-torso back, skeletal remains of the cat. So in those kinds of situations, I've seen pets disappear. Livestock, I've seen livestock get spooked pretty bad and refuse to come out of their corral or pen or that sort of thing. I've heard of a couple pigs disappearing from farms. I haven't seen it personally in any of the cases I've looked at or investigated. But one of the cases, we had a sighting in Fayette County in 2009 where daughter and mother had a sighting on a gas well line. There's the gas well lines again. And they were pretty shaken up by it. We did our investigation over that weekend. And during the course of the weekend, the mother took her boyfriend up there to investigate. They found a good size, probably 150, 200-pound feral hog that was killed dead in the forest. And it was laying on this trail. And it was bloodied and battered up pretty good. And then that Sunday, when we went up to investigate and look at the pig, it was gone. It wasn't eaten or, destroyed. The whole carcass was completely gone. So we don't have a clue what happened to it. But those are kinds of cases that we've looked at over the years where there've been some livestock involved in it, but mainly pets. And that concerns me, especially about dogs, because dogs and Bigfoot have a history of not getting along well. Dogs go missing, dogs get killed. Dogs are terrified of Bigfoot. And there's so many cases that document that when a Bigfoot is around a dog or a dog is around a Bigfoot, the dog is terrified, hides, cowers. I've seen cases where they've actually dug holes underneath their doghouse to get away from a possible Bigfoot. And
Really?
stay there for days. Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to take my usual left turn.
But who knows where the hell we're going to end up? So
yeah, well, our friend Lon, brings up the lichen loop. What is your take on the lichen loop in Dogman in Pennsylvania?
Okay, wait. So for those of us who don't know what lichen loop is, could you please explain what that is before you get into the other explanation? You knew that was coming. You're such a jerk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How can I explain the lichen loop?
I don't know.
Because it's up closer to us than it is to him. So
yeah, what's the word I'm looking for? Lycanthropy?
Yeah.
I think that's the word. Is a term for werewolf, basically.
Dogman.
And there's an area in central Pennsylvania where people have been seeing and reporting these Dogman, upright walking canid cases or creatures. And there's been several cases that Lon Strickler and Butch Wachowski have collected. And it's happening in this area. That's why they call it the lichen loop. Lycanthropy, werewolf, Dogman.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay.
That's a very brief explanation of it.
That's okay. That's all I need.
I'll be perfectly honest. I've only had maybe one or two cases of the 22 years I've been looking into the Bigfoot phenomenon reported to me of upright walking canid. I don't know if they're real or not. I've never investigated a case, although I've read about them. Jay Bachochin, our good mutual friend, he's investigated cases on the Bray Road, or the infamous Beast of Bray Road. I've been to Bray Road. It's very disappointing, let me tell you. It's all farmlands and fields. That's all it is. And it's just like driving down a backcountry road and you're like, what's so scary about this?
It's my neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it really isn't anything.
Where's Jay when we need him?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Jay will agree with you.
He's always here. Where is he?
I know. Right?
But Jay will agree with me. It's nothing really to get work. Just
yeah.
That's where people were having these sightings of these supposed upright walking werewolves or canids, or whatever you want to call them, dogmen. I don't know if the dogman phenomenon is real. I really don't. I don't put much stock in it because there's not a lot of evidence to support it. There are people claiming they're seeing these dogman creatures, and maybe they are. I just personally, I've never had a case where I could walk away saying, "Oh my gosh, there's a dogman out there."
Right.
I've gotten a few cases where I've talked to people and they seem pretty credible, and perhaps they did see a dogman, but I haven't seen any evidence to support it other than hearing the eyewitness cases. And there's a lot of researchers that are more and more coming forward saying this stuff is going on. It started, of course, in Michigan and Wisconsin. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And then it seemed to migrate over into Pennsylvania. And when people started looking into it, they were finding older historical reports and stuff like that, especially around this lichen loop. And it's just not something I've ever come across. Even in my researching, looking up the phenomenon for the database project I've been working on, I haven't found many cases of, if any cases in Pennsylvania, of dogman or upright walking canid reports in the newspaper articles or magazine articles I found. So I can't really comment much on it other than I just don't have any answers for it.
Okay. No, I just was wondering if you had stuff that cross paths with everything you've been doing. Do you get up to the Allegheny at all?
The Allegheny National Forest?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I've been up there many, many times. Yes.
Because that's only an hour and a half from both of us, so it drops right, perfect area to get to.
There's two places up in the Allegheny National Forest that really intrigue me. Marionville, which is on the southern end of the Allegheny National Forest. There's been so many sightings and reports up there over the years that I personally received, as well as reading other researchers' reports. In the Kinzua Dam area, there's stuff up in the Kinzua Dam area that I can't even explain it. It defies logic. I've talked to researchers that have gone up there and done research up there. They're seeing things and experiencing things that don't fall necessarily in the realm of Bigfoot, and I don't know what they are, but it's just bizarre stuff. It really is. There was a guy finding up. He's claiming they're portals in the Kinzua Dam area where he's seeing plasma balls of light come out of the ground and then go back into the ground. He's seeing portals open up and things coming in and out of them, finding these huge webbed three-toed tracks in the mud. things that aren't in the realm of Bigfoot that I'm familiar with. So it's been going on for a while up there in the Kinzo Dam area. So if you ever get a chance to go up there, that's an interesting place to check out.
Yeah, one of my research partners and I, we always kind of dump down there. Melanie, like I said, the Witch's Walk, which is more up our side on the New York State side. Mm-hmm. I took Christy down in the New York State side. We found some interesting, weird stuff. You know, we were going to a paranormal investigation and found a whole bunch of satanic worship stuff, put into a field. Yeah. It's like, okay, time to go. God, get out of here.
It's one of those things where I was in the car again and, I'm going, where the hell are you taking me? As I feel this pressure just bearing down on me. And he's like, oh, you feel that? And I'm like, I'm going to smack you. Like, where are we going? Before we even get there. And then we pull up and I'm going, oh man. Oh no. So yeah.
I often wonder myself if some of those lights that I'm seeing in the forest may not be related to Bigfoot. They may be paranormal in nature, spook lights or spirit lights that just happen to be in the same vicinity as where the Bigfoot's been reported or seen. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Sure. It can just be coincidence. I mean, it's not, like the swinging lamp, or things, like that. But I mean, think about it. If, spirit can interact and, spirit can interact just like a human can if they're strong enough. I mean, I've literally been pushed off of my porch by something that I couldn't see and didn't expect. Like it was not even like I was on an investigation, and it was because I was going to work that day. And little did I know that, my first client that night was going to be someone who had an issue with something more along the lines of a demonic entity in their house. And it was already trying to get me to not help them. So there's so much to it. And why wouldn't Bigfoot be attracted to an area that has a lot of energy, if nothing else? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Why wouldn't they have that element to them like we do? As human beings.
Possibility, yeah. That's a good possibility. There's so much in this world that still is undiscovered and unexplored, and people just, I think the majority of the population of this planet don't know what's out there unless they go looking for it.
Right. And everybody's experiences can be different.
True.
Too, and that's a neat part of things, but it can be very frustrating too. Yeah.
So for the new person getting involved in this, I posted your websites and stuff, but
run away. Yeah,
I was gonna, right. Well, I was going to ask, how many times have you gotten close to say, here's the pin, I'm pulling it, and I can't do this anymore.
Right.
Every year, every couple months. Yeah. The negative side about the Bigfoot field is there's so many egos, there's so many personalities, there's so many agendas, there's so many theories, there's so much infighting. It's nobody can get along in the Bigfoot field. I had a group that I ran, like I mentioned, the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Society, for almost 15 years, and at the end, that we had a huge falling out because nobody got along anymore, and blame was thrown. And it happens in all groups. Groups get together, they're together for a few years, and then just they implode. Yeah. And the Bigfoot field is just as bad as the other fields are. There's fighting. There's, like I said, there's egos, there's personalities, there's hoaxing, there's people who want it for fame and fortune.
Right.
There's so many bad things that go on it. To this day, I kind of mainly keep to myself. I have a few select researchers I work with and a small circle of friends. Mike, you're included in that, but there's just, I don't like getting involved with the super huge groups anymore because there's always, that's a what they call recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And if we do have another group again, which we may someday, it's going to be a small group of people that work well together and have like minds, and no one's in it for fame and fortune. We're all in it for the common goal, the common good, the common goal.
That's because you got a heart of gold, brother.
I don't know about that, but
if Eric gets around to doing the PA Bigfoot camping adventure again,
I would love to
dropping
check
a
that
seed.
Yes.
Maybe someday. Yeah, that's the charity fundraiser we did for three of them now. And we raised a lot of money for local charities, animal shelters and rescues and whatnot. And It's a lot of work. It's
Yes.
a lot of money. It's a lot of time investment. Fortunately, I have a great group of people I work with, Mike included. Mike volunteered and helped out, which I'm grateful for. It's a fun time. It really helps people learn truly how to do Bigfoot research and hear from people in the field doing it, and they get to experience it themselves. But I'm semi-retired right now, so maybe somewhere in the future, I can't say never, but right now I'm retired.
Never say never.
I know, brother, but I want this world to know that you've got a heart of gold. You support your family, your friends, and the little animals that are out there. So if you're out there and you like I said, you're looking for stuff, yes. Eric's big into shelters, and that's a big thing, and taking care of those rescues. Check his stuff out. We appreciate you being with us.
Yes, thank you so
Your
much.
knowledge is amazing. And Doug's put it right here that you're a good person when it came to listening to my encounter. He absorbed everything I had to say about it, and he assured me not to worry because after seeing the creature, his words, they won't bother you again since you did not leave. He was absolutely right. You have people supporting you, Eric. We appreciate it. That's why I wanted you on by yourself. I am so looking forward to the database. I know Carrie from Bigfoot Mountain is looking to look at your database. It's the historical stuff, folks. It's that research. It's the knowledge that he passes along that makes us go, why everything I've taken from him and the other guests we've had, we used last weekend. The property we were on, power lines and swamp and granite. And, it was like, check off the Eric J. Steve boxes. It was like, oh, crap,
Right.
And I look at the home. What do you think we got? Well, let's see. If that person is still watching tonight, I'm sure she's probably going, yeah, now I know I was looking for what he was looking for. Because I got great mentors like you.
Connect all the dots.
If I can leave your viewers with one piece of advice is
Yes.
never stop learning, because we don't know it all. Always educate yourself. Don't think you know it all, because we don't. There's so much to this mystery that I'm still learning about. I'm nowhere near an expert. I'll never claim to be an expert. I learn from other researchers. I learn from other techniques, other things that are going on. I learn from eyewitnesses, from their experiences. I learn from my fellow researchers, my friends, and personal experiences going out there. I'm always learning something. So don't keep your mind closed off to all possibilities, because there's a whole wide world out there that I mentioned that we have yet to discover and explore. So always be open-minded and learn as much as you can.
That's
Thank you.
amazing. Yeah. And that's one thing I truly admire about you is the fact that you're willing, and it comes so naturally for you to have an open mind. You're not just looking at one way of things. That there could be so many different things, just because one thing works one way in one situation doesn't mean it's going to be textbook for the next 5. And that's really important, I think, in all aspects of our fields.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because we don't know for sure. We all have different journeys, and we're all here to do things in different ways, but we're here to help people. And that's the biggest thing. So that's the most important. So I think that's amazing. And I admire you for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the kind words. And if you'll have me back again, next time we won't talk about Bigfoot. We'll talk about my haunted house.
Yes. Yes.
That I'm going to definitely want that. So
we already know
you're welcome anytime.
We know we got Dave Spinks in there already. We're definitely.
We've had about 5 or 6 paranormal groups into my house, and the things that I've heard and seen and experienced are just mind-boggling.
That's so cool. I can't wait to hear.
So I'll be perfectly honest with you. Before I moved in this house, I was always kind of skeptical about the paranormal. I mean, I had my idea and theories that it existed and there was something to it. And I've read the books and I studied it. But when you live it, it changes your whole perspective.
A whole different ball game.
Whole perspective. The things I've seen and my wife has happened to her, my son, our animals. It's mind blowing.
Wow.
Mind blowing.
About it.
Fortunately, right now it's been quiet. So except for the chair.
Yeah. I got to look to see if there's an animal on there when I blow it up.
Right?
Well,
oh my God.
Eric, if you wouldn't mind staying in our green room for a minute and
Sure.
we're gonna close out the show.
Thank you so much for being here.
Down. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been fun.
Oh, yes. Anytime. Anytime.
Okay, I'm gonna slide Eric out of here. So,
Very
folks,
interesting.
yes. Again, please check out Eric's stuff. Thank you for joining us. This was a wonderful evening for us. Eric is a wonderful, wonderful man.
Very interesting. We can talk forever. He's been doing this for so long. He has just so much to share,
Yeah. So
wow.
We're going to close out. We will post very soon on when we are going to do our reading show.
We will. We promise. We promise.
Yes.
Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. One of those reading shows will only be YouTube only on our YouTube channel. And again, if you're like me and you didn't know better way back when, it's embarrassing, but you don't have to pay to subscribe. You just hit the button and you never have to touch it again if you don't want to. But it would really help us out, and it would give you access to a lot more of what we do. Very, very interesting. So next week we have, thank you, Mom.
Yeah.
Our biggest supporters.
Is it Kenny next week?
Sister, we have author Kenny Irish coming on next week. Yes.
So we'll talk a little more Bigfoot next week and some paranormal. So thank you all, and then I will be posting some of our adventure pictures this weekend. So all right, and where's my little brand thing? And let's roll this out.
Thank you, everybody. Stay safe and sample on.